So for the past few years, I have been traveling around the United States and really throughout the world and teaching people to use and do solution-focused brief therapy, mostly with couples. And as I do this, there's one question that people always seem to have that has been the hardest thing for me to answer through this process. And that question is, but what do you do with couples who want to argue or who keep arguing, or how do you handle an argument when it breaks out in session? And to be honest with you, for a long time, this was a really hard question for me to answer. Not because I wasn't clear on what I was doing in the session, but because I was really having a difficult time articulating how these situations are handled, like exactly what it was I was doing in session in using solution-focused brief therapy to stop these types of things, or to remove the chances of an argument. And then one day, it dawned on me. Like one day, pretty recently, I had a thought that helped me be able to articulate what it was that I was doing in session to help with this type of process. So I'm going to give you an analogy. I tell a lot of stories when I answer questions. So I'm going to tell you a really quick story and give you an analogy on why I think solution-focused brief therapy is so effective in working with couples, especially in couples where there's an argument happening. So even though I grew up in the city, one of my favorite things to do is when I have some relaxing time is to watch like survival shows, like nature shows on the Discovery Channel. And one day I was watching a nature show, and this survivalist was he's demonstrating how you start a fire using friction. So he's got sticks and he's rubbing the sticks together to start a fire. And he explained that the only way you can have a fire is if the environment is appropriate for a fire. And in order to have an appropriate environment for a fire, you really just have to have a couple of things. You have to have a spark. You have to have dry tinder to catch the spark. You have to have larger wood to keep the fire going. And you have to have fuel, oxygen, to feed the fire. If you don't have those things, you just cannot have fire. And this survivalist was explaining how if you have those things, then the likelihood of you being able to accomplish starting a fire goes way up. And obviously in a survival situation, having a fire is a really important thing. So I'm watching the show and I'm thinking, wow, because in a weird way, arguments and therapy sessions are the exact same thing. Like the environment has to be appropriate in order to have an argument. And when you work with couples, the environment's automatically appropriate, because by the time someone comes to couples therapy, something has happened that would be an efficient or a sufficient spark for a fire. The two people are they could hold the spark, and all it needs is the wrong type of thing to come up in the therapy session, and boom, we've got an argument. So, but really, in the therapy sessions that I conduct, arguments don't happen very, very often, and it's because I do some pretty intentional things to make sure the environment is not appropriate. And that is by introducing the couple's resources, skills, what they like about each other, and most importantly, hope. Because the brain is a very important thing. It's a very funny thing. Even though your brain is a very complex thing that can accomplish amazing, amazing things, one thing you just cannot do is have two thoughts at the same time. So you can't simultaneously be thinking what you like about someone and what you don't like about someone. One of the things that I find so fascinating about couples therapy is people come into the office and they've almost like removed everything they like about their partner and gotten laser focused on the stuff they don't. So in my work, we kind of flip that by asking very intentional questions like, how did you meet? When you first fell in love, what was it that you enjoyed immediately about this person? What character traits or personality traits did this person possess that made you desirous of wanting to see them even a second time? And what little traces of that person are still present even in spite of the current problems? Now, once people start getting in touch with these beautiful, wonderful, loving memories, then the environment starts to change because we've now doused the conversation with hope. When I was watching that survival show, he said the best way to put out a fire is to smother it. So to cut off the oxygen, to cut off the fuel. And I honestly believe the best way to put out an argument, or the best way to make the environment inappropriate for an argument in a therapy session, is to smother it with hope. Because once they get in touch with what they liked about each other, even in the beginning, then all of a sudden they start to remember. They start to think. They start to recall. And they start to realize that if we've done it once before, regardless of what the current problem is, we can do it once again. The trick is this requires unbelievable focus on behalf of the therapist, because it's so easy to let problem talk come into the session and then ruin the whole process. But if you can stay focused on introducing hope via your language in the conversation, it makes the environment so much less likely for arguments. Like, I'm so excited about this. I've recently written an article that's going to come out in the next 2 months or so about this topic. It's now part of my trainings I'm going to be doing throughout 2015. Lots of fun exercises and lots of cool things so people can practice honing their skills to make sure the environment is not appropriate for an argument. Because once you introduce these loving things, then the environment is changed, and it's changed forever. So anyway, I'm just going to keep this video brief. I just wanted to introduce you guys to this new idea that I'm quite excited about. So now, in the beginning, when people would ask me, what do you do with couples who argue quite a bit, I really didn't know how to articulate it. But now when people say, so what do you do with couples who argue quite a bit in session, I'm so excited because I simply tell them, I smother them with hope. And that makes the environment different. So thanks for watching my video. Hope you guys find these things helpful. Talk to you later.